It's Thursday, it's Litsoc. We're back after the holidays. Welcome back, everybody. Lovely to see Emily, who's only just got back from skiing, which I understand went really well. So nice to see you. Did you manage to catch up with us abroad, or did you not have time?
I didn't have much time, but I did some reading while I was gone as well.
Good. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. Miss Rio got married. Congratulations. Did it go well?
It was lovely.
Lovely. Excellent. Okay. And it's our last term for Year 11s for a bit, isn't it? Because you'll be going off on study leave in a couple of weeks. So, but you're always welcome, as you know. We look forward to seeing you perhaps after it's finished.
Same for our 13s too as well.
Yeah, Year 13, Lulu, it's your very last term. So we'll be planning celebration for you.
It's nothing to worry about, I assure you.
And today we are, because we won't be around next week because of various things happening, but today it's about illustrated books, not graphic novels this time, but books with illustrations, whether children's books or books that have a non-fiction focus that are illustrated, or storybooks that have got illustrations as well, because this is much less of a tradition now, but becoming perhaps more so as books are trying to become more specialised and lovely things to hold. So I think I'm going to start with The Lost Words. The Lost Words, which came about. Anybody, do you come across this, everybody? Yeah? Anybody want to tell me how it came about? Do you know? Mariam, do you know? Lulu, you know, don't you?
Wasn't there like a survey or something where they figured out that kids who, especially who lived in like populated areas, didn't know certain words that were to do with nature, like dandelion or field?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
everybody knew field.
Conquer. Also, because Robert Macfarlane is an academic at Cambridge, Jackie Morris is a wonderful artist. You can see her illustrations here. Robert Macfarlane was very aware of dictionaries, and every year Oxford and Cambridge dictionaries talk about the words that are going in, coming out, and ones that won't be put back in. And it wasn't so much even the adult dictionaries, because adult dictionaries have to record, especially if they're Oxford and Cambridge, have to record almost every word that's used in our language. But children's dictionaries were losing nature words like blackberry, conker, horse chestnut, thrush, goldfinch, which is what these are, sunflowers. And so a whole genre of vocabulary was a semantic field were being lost. And so they got very angry about this, but also actually went about seeing what they could do. So this was their first book, but they've also done stage shows with songs, spell songs, and Jackie Morris continues to produce fabulous paintings. So here's one of her stunning, I love owls, so this is, yeah, exactly. I mean, this is just fabulous, isn't it? There's just something really special about it. Obviously it's predators, but also wonderful. So here's the way they've put the words together. So this is really for younger children, and I bought one of my friends who had trained as a primary school teacher this for her classroom so that she could work with her children to go over it. So here we are, Bramble. So there's a whole... Bramble is on the march again, rolling and arching along the hedges into parks on the city edges. All streets are suddenly thick with briar. Carls snarled first, business over. Moths have come in their millions, drawn to the thorns. The air flutters. Bramble has reached each house now, looped it in wire. People lock doors, close shutters. Little shoots steal through keyholes to leave in quiet halls. Empty stairwells, bowls of bright blackberries where the light falls. So the irony of this, of course, is that David Attenborough has never been more popular in terms of his nature programme, and the latest one, of course, is Wild Isles, as he tells us what we're going to lose. But the words and the metaphors, so if you read that to an average year 8, 9, 10, they might not be able to work out what a bramble is or where it is or why it's likely to creep through a keyhole, because I remember when David Attenborough did his first programme on plants, The Life of Plants, a bramble was the first thing that he looked at, and they did it in slow motion photography, and how it literally grew across a path and snaked its way around. And of course in the autumn it has these wonderful blackberries, which birds and people like too. And we see it as a weed, but of course it's not. It's just a plant that is trying to live in its own space. So there is the blackbird, loves the berries. So it's not just, almost photographic illustrations, but also much more impressionistic. There's the conker and its spiky shell. And fun with the words and the letters as well. So it's a thing of beauty, isn't it, really? This was also because people were concerned that there wasn't enough time in the primary curriculum to have nature tables anymore, to show and to tell about things like that. And also, whilst we now have forest nursery schools, it's quite unusual for school children during the day to get out. Anybody been out today?
Apart from to walk from
Apart from
building to
to walk
building.
from building to building, you have?
Sat by the
Where's
river at lunch.
Oh, you went by the river at
well
lunch.
done.
Yeah, I
Well
went by
done.
the river lunchtime.
We can't leave.
No, you're not allowed to leave. But have you, were you out in the quad, for example?
Oh no, but that's because I had a thing at lunch. So
Not all of lunch?
Weather's getting
Yes,
better.
all of lunch.
Okay, all of lunch, Mariam. Fair enough. Emily, did you get out today?
I went to Hinchleywood.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, that's just a load of grass, isn't it? I mean, there are trees, but did you get into the trees?
We went on the estuary. It was a very nice estuary.
The prep school always bumble around in the trees.
Yes, they
Yes,
do.
they do.
They do
Yeah.
ensure that the
Nature.
prep school do forest lessons, but it's unusual. So there's my choice, and I am very fond of this. And I think Robert McFarlane, if you haven't come across him before, as a something for a holiday reading or over the summer reading, if you're a bit older, he is amazing on mythology and walks and things. Mariam.
I have a smaller kind of A5 pocket version, and
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I should say that one. Oh, the binding on that, like the both the dust cover and the actual cover of the book is absolutely gorgeous. Like that, it's a really good book.
It is. It's beautiful. It's really lovely. And the other spell songs is absolutely beautiful. The music that's been. And in terms of podcasting and broadcasting, the BBC and lots of other people have now tried to bring nature in to their programmes as well. But we're still under threat. It's still under threat in a very big way. We are one of the worst countries in Europe for looking after our wildlife, despite the fact of David Attenborough and Chris Packham and Spring Watch, Autumn Watch and Summer Watch. And the only way it's going to change is if our future people sitting around this table do something about it. So down to you, girls.
Yeah, just to add to what Miss Honey was saying about the quad, with the weather getting better, definitely do spend more time. You break on lunchtimes. And don't forget, we got the Green Fingers garden.
Yeah, and we've got the garden down by the riverside.
Yes.
You've been down there? Yeah? What have you seen? What have you seen on the
There's
riverside?
Lots of flowers and lots of ants and cute little bugs.
Yep. In our riverside garden, there's a whole load of daffodils. They're very late, but that's because they were put in late. So
And Miss Huntley went down there with U11, was it?
no, we didn't get there
Oh, because of the weather.
because of the weather. It
Yeah, of
snowed. You were away.
I was away,
We
yeah.
had snow. Did you have snow there?
No.
No. Yeah, we had not quite the last snow of the summer of the season, but pretty. Yeah. It was
Okay.
bad, wasn't it, Josie, Holly? We didn't go.
Oh, you two were going to go with
Yeah,
Miss
we
Huntley?
were.
Oh.
Yeah, we did. I had a lovely time in the art room, didn't we? But well, maybe not. But I had a nice time anyway. Yeah, we didn't get into the garden. So I think we're doing the 13th of May is our next big.
Oh,
push.
okay. So
So
there's no one coming up.
yeah, so
Good.
do come. Anyway, who's next? Who would like to do something? Marianne, do you want to go next?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I brought in one of my childhood books. Like, because when you sent out the email, illustrated books, I had a lot of books that I wanted to bring in, but obviously can't just bring like 20 books in. So I decided to bring in this book. It's called The Enchanter's Daughter. And I brought it in because the illustrations in this book are insane. Like, I could frame these and put these on a wall, and
Beautiful,
and it tells a story of a young girl who lives in a tower, quite like Rapunzel, and every day her father, the enchanter, conjures up a new world for her just outside the tower. And so
Is she allowed into it?
yes, she's allowed into the world, but she's not allowed, like, you can see the tower here, and then outside you've got the mountains, but then in the world there she's got little... So she's playing with the monkeys, but then she grows lonely, and so she asks her father for some books, and he's all tired and grumpy, and he doesn't think about the consequences of her having these books. And then she learns about the outside world, and then so she goes on this entire journey, and begs her father to tell her where she came from because she doesn't have a mother. So she goes into a rose.
Is it a Chinese story?
Yeah, I think so. And then a fish, and then a deer, and then eventually she manages to convince him to turn her into a bird, and then she somehow manages to fly outside the walls because she turns into a very small songbird, and then she's trapped all alone just outside the mountain where she's discovered by this farmer, who turns out to be her long lost brother. So, and then we learn about this whole story, and it is an incredible story with incredible illustrations, and the storytelling is just incredible, and I love the book. So, yes.
Thank you. When was it published? It's not one I know.
Oh, isn't it? It's
I
quite old now, isn't it?
Yeah, I've no idea when it was published. 1987.
Well, okay, it's not that old. Did you inherit that from someone? I just thought Lily A year
Oh
2.
no, that's mine. That's my sister.
Oh, that's your sister, right?
To be. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look. It's very Oriental influence.
And who's it
So
Antonia
Barber.
Antonia Barber.
Well, you know who that is.
do you know who that is?
No, I don't know who that is.
Is there a little potted biography somewhere within? Disappointing if not.
No, I don't think so.
Antonia Barber.
No, there isn't.
There isn't. Did you do a little?
Amazing Mr. Blunder.
Oh yeah. Yes,
There
of course.
isn't.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing about Antonia Barber.
Okay, but
That's interesting because when I did the Amazing Mr. Blunder and I looked her up, it does talk about her retelling of fairy tales. Not this one. It didn't talk about this one, but because she was very influenced by Nicholas Stuart Gray, who I'll talk about in another Litsoc in a while. But that's not him, but it certainly got a sort of feel of his sort of tales. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Emily. Yes. Cool.
oh, good choice here coming up.
Oh yes.
I've got
Fabulous. Very famous. Yes.
The Boy, the Mole, the Fox
Yeah,
and the
lovely.
Horse, and I also have it in Italian because when I was in Cortina I bought it because I noticed that the illustrations are different. They're by the same author, but illustrations are different and the story is different.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
How interesting.
But like the illustration, these ones, like they're
Yes, they are
really
very different.
beautiful. Yeah.
Why do you think that might be, Emily?
I don't know. This one is more about like the story. So the boy's lost, and then he finds the mole, and then they try and find their way out.
So it's much more of a quest story than.
Yes, yeah, but it also has like the knowledge and like, wisdom from this book.
Wisdom,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like this one was definitely like written by the author. So this one's more of like the translation, but with extra things because you can't like write it as this one's got the coffee stain, the tea stain, and you can't really put it in. But I find it like they're both really beautiful. I like how I have both of them.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is it that peels?
The
Appeals, yeah.
well, I just like having it. I have it not in my bookshelf, but in front, so that whenever like I want to just sit down and just read through it, because this one's quite a quick read for me, and it's just nice just sitting there, and it's a nice day when it's raining. And this one is more like when I want a longer read in Italian, and it's just lovely looking at them as well. Is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
These illustrations are more like lined and more you can see all like the circles and everything. This one's, you can tell it's more like, it's soft, it's not softer, but it just gives off.
Is it digital art, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it
other
just
one is more hand-drawn, isn't
it just gives off like,
Yes, that's much more. It does seem more digital, even if the backgrounds aren't. Yeah.
yeah, it just seems, because the background is different to the actual characters, like their drawings and everything.
I
Yeah,
wonder if that's inspired by the TV show that was on at Christmas. I wonder if that's the illustration.
Ah.
It's on BBC, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just a theory.
Do you know when this one was published? Is it quite new? As in, the last year or two? Because obviously it first came out 4 or 5 years ago, didn't it? Or
Yeah.
maybe a bit less, 3 or 4, 2 or 3.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was year 5 maybe.
Okay, it's about 4 years ago.
You were in year 5 4 years ago.
Wait,
Well, you were in year 10 4 years ago.
yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Well, yeah, there's that as well. Lest we forget.
2022.
Okay, so that's a very new edition. So yeah, it could well have
Yeah.
been then. Yeah,
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
It's really cool to see the two side by side, isn't it?
Absolutely.
they're both really lovely to
So you
read.
said they changed the story.
The story's like pretty similar, but the direct translation. So I was looking through. This one starts off with "Hello, I'm so small," said the mole, and like that. This one, just a lot of illustrations about the boy at the beginning, and he's kind of lost. And then he says hi, and he's like, "Hi, I'm lost." And he's "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm lost." And he's like, then they talk about tarts. And if you know me, I really love tarts. So tarts and cakes. And they just go on a little quest, and then the fox is kind of scary in this. But then they become friends with the fox. And the fox is a bit less scary. But they're still friends, so
Interesting.
they have similarities. But this one's more of a story, and this one's more of a story as well as like,
But life lessons.
Yeah, it's more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a story, but yeah, it's more.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Cool. Thank you, Emily. Thank you very much. Okay, who would like to go next? Anyone brought along anything? Or if you haven't, you got something? Thank you. Do you want to come have a seat then, Lulu? If you haven't brought anything along, as always, we do have some stuff on the table. We got some Roald Dahl, for instance, Paddington, and so on.
If I can
Tracy
find.
Beaker, yeah. So anything you like. Remember, any illustrated book, as Miss Annie says, adults, children, in between, fiction, non-fiction, anything with illustrations. Yeah.
Just,
Okay.
Just trying to scroll past all my selfies to find these photos. I promise they do exist. Yes. Okay.
Right.
So, has anyone been to the National Poetry Library in South Bank?
No.
Okay.
I haven't
So
actually.
it's really cool. It's have you been to the South Bank Centre in South Bank? It's it's a big awful building next to the other big awful building that is the National Theatre.
Yeah, they're not the most attractive.
No, but basically it's really cool in there. If you go up to the top, I think it's nearly the top floor, I think it's the 5th floor, there's a tiny weeny little poetry library, and it's all poetry. Some of it you can actually borrow, so I'm a member. I haven't actually had the courage to go up to the desk and physically take something out yet, but I will one day. And yeah, and I sat in there a few times over Easter just to read, because I'm usually down there, but I was specifically on the lookout for poetry that did have illustrations in it and that had funky stuff. So these are the ones that caught my eye. So there's this one which isn't an illustration, but you can see oh sorry, it's so small. you can see that the format of the poetry is a bit different than you might expect, and I love things like that. So it's just a bit different. So that's kind of like, if you're doing like a hierarchy of illustration, that's like basic, like level 1, like bit quirky. Then you've got stuff like this, which I thought was really cute, and this is actually the book. It's kind of a different book, like a size, so it's more like a magazine concept, I don't know, because it's not your traditional book that maybe looks a bit like this. But on the inside it had these really cute little, so it had the poetry on this side, sorry, I should have put these on my iPad, and then they had really cute little stick men on the sides, illustrating the poem. And I thought they were really cute. So if we're doing this is the poem. Anybody can, yes, anybody can. No matter what the difficulty, give it a try. Digging, dancing, drawing flies, swimming in the bathtub, goggles on your eyes. Anybody can. So it's kind of a bit wacky, and that's, you can see him swimming in the bathtub and whatever. So if you're doing the hierarchy, that's like level 2 illustration, cute. Then
I don't know what levels are you giving me now.
I don't know. This is all improvised. Then okay, so
And is it illustrated by the author or somebody else?
I don't know. It didn't have any name on the front.
Really?
No.
Lord.
So it's very bohemian. Then I think level. Can't decide which level I'm going. Okay, no, this is level 3.
Right.
This is really cool. So this one, I had a bit of a debate with myself as to whether I liked this one, because I was thinking, is it practical? No. Can I read what it actually says? No. Did I like looking at it and trying to read it? Yes. So basically, on every page, sorry, you can see me propping up on my knee, but they had this on the left side, which this is the poem. You can see it's kind of faded out. Sorry, I know it's really small.
Like on purpose.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yes,
it's faded
yeah.
out, so you can't actually read what it says. But on the other side, it had photos. I'll go around the other way to be fair.
Sepia photos.
Yeah, and it had that on every
For a particular
page.
reason, obviously, to go with the faded text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it just kind of gave like
Very imaginative, yeah.
old family photos. This was another photo that was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
And then so they were all faded out like that, and I was just thinking, I just wonder what the point, what he was going for, or she, or they.
Memories.
Yeah, like memories.
Heritage.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting way of doing it, and I really liked it. And all of these books had like kind of funky covers as well. Then this is like the supreme level of illustration in poetry. This is completely weird. This is actually a video of me on the train unfolding it, but the trees are made up. This is poetry writing, but it's all scribbles. Sorry, I'll show you over there. But these illustrations are actually the writing, and it was like a pamphlet that I found and took home. But yeah, that was also one I had a debate about, because I was like, I can't read any of the words, and they're just trees. But I thought it was really cool, and it shows what you can do with the words when you write them down. You don't have to stick to the traditional Baskerville font like poetry, and there's lots of interesting things you can do with it, and I thought, yeah, that was cool.
That is great.
Girls, have you looked at Wolf Hollow yet in the anthology?
Sort of.
Did you look at the front covers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember the trees that were made up of the words? Did you talk about that in class?
We haven't like fully discussed it.
You haven't fully
Well,
discussed
we've seen it. Yeah.
You've seen it, yeah. Wolf Hollow, which is this book we do a little bit of Year 7 work with. Do you remember? No, we didn't do it with you.
It was
no.
year 8.
It was Year 8.
Yeah,
and
we don't have any year 8
7.
here, I don't think.
The first, the illustration that is not used in the one that we're using for the text, the trees are made up of the first words of the prologue.
Oh, cool.
And so we had a discussion in class yesterday as to what was being said, and did it add, because then an archway has the same words as well, so similar sort of thing.
Nice.
Um,
I love things like that. I just think
it
so
works
many
really well.
things you can do with it.
It's part. I think you can learn it as part of calligraphy. Quite often, the British Library have courses on calligraphy, and you can go and learn, spend a day doing calligraphy. experimenting with different nibs and pens and illustration with words. It's lovely. Marianne, sorry.
I bought a poetry anthology from Dog Books, and one of my favourite poems in it was this poem describing a coffin. It was very, very short, but it was shaped like a coffin. And I spent like 20 minutes trying to read it because it was, like you said, I could not read it. I had to turn and twist the book. But poems that are shaped like the actual poem, like a poem about a spider that's got the little spidey legs. I love those kind of poems.
Did you do them Did you look at them in the primary school? They used to be on the curriculum in primary school, shaped poems.
I remember doing that in school.
Yeah, I think I did it.
I don't remember most of primary school. So.
Oh well, fair enough. Okay.
Blocked it all out.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I remember driving, that's it.
Hey.
Shape poetry is,
I was the
is
library
a
rat.
real. Not only how do you illustrate something, but also can you do it so abstractly that people still make it work?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a how accessible is it? Like, I just think it's interesting. Yeah, so I definitely recommend all of that and just going in the poetry library and seeing what you can find, because there's all sorts of stuff that isn't even books. It's just paper in a plastic envelope. And you can, and you can take it out and look at it, and it's really cool and it's really quiet.
Yeah, it's a great place to go, isn't it?
Yeah, and the South Bank Centre in general always has lots of cultural things on. I think there's performance by Kay Tempest, who's a performance poet. On, I think it's right smack bang in the middle of my A levels, so I can't go. But I would recommend.
Yeah, they're really good, Kay Tempest, aren't
They
they?
did a oh my god. They did one. They do lots of classical things, and yeah, I think it's called The Modern Gods. But yeah, no, I would definitely recommend. That's what I have to say.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please let me go.
And are you writing a poem for Leavers Day?
They haven't asked me to, but
Well, I'm asking you to.
Ooh, there you go.
Okay,
Oh,
because we'll have communion. So it'd be
Oh.
nice to read something out there. That's or we'll have
if you
you
don't
read
mind me
something.
performing it as Velma from Scooby Doo, then I will do that.
Oh, really?
I'll be
Here's
dressed up
a
as
spoiler
Velma.
for you.
Because it has to be things that start with S.
That's the
Scooby-Doo.
tradition for the Athenes last day.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd love to. I was
I'm
hoping
asking.
they'd asked me.
So that'll be the 13th of May.
12th of May.
12th of May. Yeah. Yeah. So consider yourself asked. Do you want me to put it in an email?
Yeah.
Normally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need it in
Well,
writing
you've
so I
got a
can
satchel
justify it to
one.
the rest of the head girl team.
All right. Great. Thank you. Really, that's really
Yeah, that was great.
interesting.
Thank you,
Thank
Lily.
you. Anybody else? Mr. Humphreys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Well, I'll talk about a couple of things. In
Do you want to sit here and I'll go sit Mr. Humphreys?
Oh, this is-
Yeah.
Right. So, I thought I'd first talk about some
Your
Tolkien.
hero?
Oh no, my hero. Oh no, Bill, that's my hero. My best mate.
Best mate. Great guy.
Yes, he is. Yeah, we. Oh no, we are. Yeah. You joke. No, we are. Right. Yeah. So Tolkien. Now, obviously, we talked about Tolkien before, didn't we? We did Litsoc and Lord of the Rings, and you've all seen the movies, of course, or most of you have seen the movies or the Hobbit movies, or
If you haven't seen the
or-
movies, they're worth seeing.
Absolutely.
They are,
My mum made me watch them in one weekend.
I know, you told us, yeah.
That's quite.
I'm traumatised. That's why I keep bringing it up.
I'm getting round to it.
You're getting round to it.
Don't watch them in one weekend.
It's quite intense. Okay, well, it's also for those of you who got Amazon
They
Prime.
are
There's
very in
also
your face as well, especially if you start with. Did she start you with The Hobbit first?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
All of them.
No,
No.
we pretend to forget
Forget
that those
The Hobbit.
exist.
It's not
So
No, it's not
No.
so bad, Lulu. And also, when I got back from Oxford, because I was in withdrawal symptoms, I did watch the whole of The Hobbit because I couldn't bear to leave Tolkien behind, as well as starting to watch The Lord of the Rings as well. And also I began to watch Morse and Lewis and then Endeavour, which I'll come back to in a minute.
most Oxfordian.
Yeah. So, but yes, they're all right in small doses.
Yeah, you shouldn't be watching them on one weekend. That's just
No.
mental. I know it wasn't your decision. It wasn't. I know that wasn't your decision. Anyway, the reason I mentioned that, first of all, yes, watch them and then read the books. But part of the team that made that, there was a conceptual artist, and he was called Alan Lee, and he did some really great work. So basically, when it came to designing the costumes, the set pieces, all the rest of it, you need some sort of like concept art to base that on, and Alan Lee did a really good job. So much so that when it came to these later books, so we have The Fall of Numenor. Anyone know what Numenor is? Let's test how geeky we are with our Tolkien knowledge. Okay.
It's the world that preceded Middle Earth.
Yes. Essentially, Gondor is the closest things to from the Third Age. It's the closest things to the Numenorians in the Second Age. I mean, Miss Hunting knows a lot more about this than we haven't done the course. But so it's from the so-called Second Age, and they talk. The series on Amazon Prime is building up to the eventual fall of Numenor. And I've also got the fall of Gondor in here, which is the First Age, Morgoth, etc. But I mean, you can see from the cover. So Numenor, very biblically, got washed away by an epic flood, and that's what's on the cover here. Now, I mean, you can see, I would say that Alan Lee, his fantasy artwork for the Lord of the Rings trilogy has had a big influence on all sort of fantasy art since.
The illustrations that are on the DVD.
Yeah, he did those as well.
He did those as well.
He did those as well, yeah.
Because the covers are so different.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say,
well,
oh yes, that's definitely by the guy who did.
So the ones that in the DVD probably look more like that.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he does two distinctive art styles. So this is
Right.
like a sort of pencil-y, stencil-y kind of drawing, and then you've got the epic canvas, which of course, if you look at things like, for example, the towers, you can see that these are very reminiscent of that. And I would say, yeah, he has had a big influence. Now, when it comes to fantasy or high fantasy, you do need world building is very important, and you do need to make a believable kind of looking world, and it requires a lot of intricate detail and lots of beautifully rendered
Well, if you're going to
features.
furnish a room, you've got to start with the floor tiles and the cups and the saucers.
Yes,
and
indeed,
cetera.
indeed,
Yeah.
you do. And it's not just about the final flourishes on the wallpaper. It is about the foundations.
I can remember watching, because I used to, when each Lord of the Rings film came out, I went to Kingston Odeon to watch it with a colleague that I went. We loved them too, and I can remember seeing the first sight of Minas Tirith and saying to her, it was just because we'd left work, 4, and we were seeing it sort of at 4:30, so it was an almost empty cinema, despite the fact they'd only just come out. We'd been out a week or something, and I can remember saying, "Oh my goodness, they've made it like a Renaissance city, Jane. It's amazing."
Yeah.
So the whole concept was just. Minas Tirith was just so special.
That is a very good way of putting it, because you think of Rivendell and what's it called, Lothlorien, and this is I don't know what this is actually. I think this must be Numenor. This picture here, so you can see it is like a Renaissance.
Rivendell there,
yes, absolutely, and if you look at that, it does look like a Renaissance painting. Look at the characters, the long flowing robes, and all the rest of it. It almost looks like a utopia, doesn't it? Before it becomes a dystopia.
Yes, exactly.
So Tolkien, as we said in our previous episode, master of fantasy. So definitely, you need to do justice with the illustrations. If you can do that, and
but also,
these do.
Of course, Tolkien was a fabulous artist in his own right.
Oh yes, think of his maps, for instance.
His maps, but also his original covers for The Hobbit, which were not really designed to appeal to children. I don't think they're very, very Scandinavian, aren't they? Really, because the runes are built into the illustrations as well. And then, as I was growing up, you could get posters. So my room was covered in posters of illustrations that were taken from the novel. In the original, they were all pen and ink line drawings, but then they added in, as they sold well, they added in colour illustrations that he worked on himself, and so that was
of course he was very influenced by Norse.
Well, he's also very influenced by the artwork for Narnia as well. That was Pauline Baynes, and she did one of the original cover for the big Lord of the Rings, the 3-volume put together in the paperback. That was her cover, which I only realised last year when I saw the Pauline Baynes exhibition. But he would have talked to Lewis about that, definitely. But yes, I mean, And also because he was telling the tales for his children, he would also have had the illustrations for them as well.
Yeah. Such as like the door to what's it called? The caves, Moria. Mine's Moria.
Moria,
That's an example, and the tree of life, the white tree. So yeah, definitely a good thing to look. Tolkien books, definitely a good thing to look out for illustrations. So now I'll move on to my best mate, Chris Riddell. So I mean,
not Neil Gaiman, but Chris Riddell.
Neil Gaiman's my favourite author. I haven't met Neil Gaiman in person. I've been to one of his talks, and he was fabulous. What was that?
A concert.
Fake fan? How dare you? You take that back. But Chris Riddell, of course, has illustrated me,
That concert
as you must know.
I found it on BBC Sounds.
Oh, is it?
Ago. Yeah, I don't know if it's still there.
I've been to 2 Neil Gaiman things. One with Miss Huntley and Miss Davis. That was a few years ago now. And we had the surprise appearance by David Tennant.
Oh, that was so fabulous, wasn't it?
That was not expected. It was unannounced. And he read an extract from Good Omens.
Before Good Omens had been...
I think it was just about to be televised, because of course he's in the
and Amanda
adaptation.
was there as well.
She was.
Before they parted.
Yes. Yeah, we thought they were together for life, didn't we? But
we did.
alas.
Yeah, alas.
I know.
Did Neil Gaiman write Norse mythology?
Yes.
You know the one. Yes.
I read that a few weeks ago.
Yes, he did. For a second, I thought you asked me,
should
did
really
he
check
write
out
the
his
original
other
Norse
work.
stories? I was like, what? No, he's not that amazing.
Have you not read this? Have you not read the Graveyard book? Oh, you'd love it. You'd absolutely adore it.
I will talk about it in a
definitely.
second. So we saw him at that, and then I saw him also when he did a promotional tour for The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is there was a school trip there not too long ago, I believe, to go and see it. Looking at the black. Did you go on it?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was really good. I actually went to see it during Easter as well.
Did you see it in Wimbledon as well, Josie? Or somewhere else?
I saw her at the Wimbledon Theatre because it's on tour at the moment.
Yeah, it is. I missed it.
But I'm writing about it for my live theatre, for my drama GCSE.
Outstanding. Great.
It was really good.
So were you familiar with the story before?
A little bit.
Okay, well, we'll go into the detail of the story, but all I want to ask is
how many grown men came out weeping?
I haven't been to see it, so maybe I will. So I can go and weep. I will see if I cry tears for you, okay? But how do they render the spirits, creatures? I don't know how best to describe them. How did they depict those?
Well, for the flea, when it's like before in like almost a real world, they used a mix of like puppetry and then like a giant puppet for that, and then they use people as well as them kind of controlling puppets for hunger birds later on, which is really effective because it makes it seem really, really big. And then when you have the flea as a human person, they had multiple people, so it seems like she's always there, and she disappears, and she comes on almost immediately after
I need to read
the other
it
side.
again. I read it so quickly when
it first came out.
So it first came out.
Sounds like you need to go and see this. Miss Hanley being a creature of the theatre as well.
We could go down there and see it.
It's really clever how they make it like how he feels. He feels trapped, and she's always there. It's clever on stage how like they make that. Feel
How did you feel? As in, was it scary? Was it oppressive? That's the right word.
I think I found a few bits like scary, like from. I think they do it quite well that you feel emotional towards the characters and you feel scared for the boy. Will it be alright? Will it not be? And then I think some of it is just really beautiful. So,
thanks.
This is his inspiration was taken very much from P.L. Travers, because Mary Poppins has fabulous illustrations. The books, all the books have, and they are actually, because they're quite. Some of the stories are very chilling. I've talked about them before, but the illustrations are not comfortable at all. I mean, she is, but they're not comfortable illustrations. They're not spine tingling. sort of otherworldly,
Unsettling.
which so much. Yeah, they're unsettling. Yeah, they are quite disturbing.
Which is what an illustrated version of Ocean at the End of the Lane would be like. Now, I don't think one exists yet, an illustrated edition of that, but it would be really fascinating to see because it's a very dark tale. It is quite a scary tale, and it's not for kids. It's definitely, even though the protagonist is a boy, it's very much not a children's book. So I'll talk about some children's books instead. And of course, he teams up with my mate Chris Riddell. And so we have the Graveyard Book. Now, the Graveyard Book is fabulous. It won a Carnegie Medal back in 2010. Yeah, 2010. So a long time ago now. And it's the Jungle Book. It's the Jungle Book adapted and modernised. And, you know, when you read it, you can see the equivalents. So, like, for example, Shere Khan is the man Jack. So, you know, it's not an obvious parallel, but they're all there. There he is, the Shere Khan. Now, you can see... Now, Chris Riddell, his illustrations are unmistakable, right? You know it's a Chris Riddell picture. And, but, of course... I don't know about you. I tend to think of him more of well, I think he is Goth Girl or Otterline.
Yeah.
But he's able to sort of push the envelope a bit more because obviously a book called The Graveyard Book is going to need to be a bit more dark and gothic.
Because he didn't do Coraline, did he?
He did.
Or did he?
He did. Not the first edition, no. But he there was. We got one up there. We're going up there, and there you go. Look at that. That's pretty.
Oh yes, that's scary.
That's pretty terrifying.
Who's that?
I can't remember. I think it's.
Is that Tom All Alone?
Yes, I think maybe. Anyway,
Anyway.
I'll have to read it. I haven't read it for a long time, but it is a fabulous book because it's very. Yes, the story kind of roughly parallels the Jungle Book, but in some ways it's like a connection of loose vignettes of his weird and wonderful experiences, and there's all sorts of magical things like the Dance Macabre makes a showing.
Yes, he used a lot of literary and classical music allusions, which
is what he
clever.
is famous for, and
Yeah.
those actually, I don't know any of you went to my Neil Gaiman Litsoc talk. That was years and years ago. But when I did do a Neil Gaiman Litsoc talk, I did mention about how all of his works are littered with allusions to other literature. So Jungle Book obviously, but I just mentioned Dance Macabre and loads of other things as well. So so the Graveyard Book is very highly recommended. It's probably my favourite Carnegie Medal winner. Certainly in the last 20, 30 years.
When I was in, on my sabbatical in 2016, and it was too hot to go out in the day during in the afternoon in Greece. I used to listen to Neil Gaiman on YouTube reading this, the whole thing, not abridged. It was the whole thing, and it worked really well. The only problem I've got with that cover is that it's a bit of a plot spoiler. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We shan't say.
No.
So that is Neil Gaiman, great author. That's one of his best books. I just want to mention this one as well to sort of bit of light relief. This is just a very, very silly book, you know. So this is all. We're talking about all the Dance Macabre and all these other illusions. This is just a silly story about a man who goes
also
out.
That's a rite of passage story, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
well, of course, because he's an
romance.
orphan, and it is. He's an orphan. He goes to the graveyard, and it's all again like Mowgli. Just sort of
to leave, to
leave,
up,
and how does he do that?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's very poignant when he actually spoilers, and he actually does. But this is just a very silly story about a man who goes looking for milk, and he comes up with loads of excuses as to why he can't find it, and he tells his kids, well, sorry, but I got sidetracked by some weird monsters that kidnapped me, and then some pirates captured me. And then you go like a crocodile scientist, and then I met another dinosaur, and it just goes off in all sorts of weird tangents. And angry volcano gods demanding human sacrifice as well. Intergalactic police. It's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets, I don't know, Neil Gaiman, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and Chris Riddell.
Toy Story possibly too.
Yeah, but actually, yes, a bit of Toy Story as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you go, look, there's the jungle gods in all their glory.
Oh yes, wonderful.
So more crazy imagination from the
fabulous.
mind of Neil Gaiman.
Yeah,
and incidentally,
and
Chris Riddell. And of course, this is it. The point is, without Chris Riddell, it wouldn't be half as effective because Chris Riddell brings it to life. Neil Gaiman is a big advocate for illustrations, such as his graphic novels, the Sandman graphic novels. But Coraline, Graveyard Book, and this. And lastly, but not least, the character of the dad. He looks a bit like Neil Gaiman,
yeah,
basically.
like
So I don't know whether this is autobiographical and it's actually based on something that really happened to him. Possible. The crazy things Neil Gaiman gets up to. So
Have a look at the little car.
the little car.
No, it's not a car, is it? What is it? That he's
Oh, he's in a hot air balloon.
Oh right, okay.
And Mia Carr couldn't take him on
Mia
these
Carr,
adventures whilst he's looking for the milk.
absolutely. Yeah.
So there you go. So I think I've spoken quite a long time, so I think it's time to go over to someone else. But yeah, Neil Gaiman and Chris Riddell and Tolkien are my recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, who would like to take the hot seat?
Anybody else? Isabel?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah?
No one else has anything
Girls,
to say?
anybody?
Like I said, if you haven't brought anything,
There's plenty
the
on
Plain
the
as
table.
Able, we mentioned
or,
Roald Dahl, Jack Nicholson,
Yeah, that's
something that might have influenced you as a child.
Paddington, Winnie the Pooh,
Paddington. Yeah, Winnie the Pooh.
Asterix,
of course, is
Tintin.
the-
Oh yeah.
Winnie the Pooh is probably one of our earliest.
I saw you looking at this.
Yeah,
Remember
I've
this?
forgotten.
Yeah, don't worry. So with everyone else, but we'll talk about it at the end.
Mm.
Maybe after the camera stopped rolling.
Yeah.
Where is he? Where
What?
is Winnie the Pooh? He's not there.
No,
Winnie's at home. Sorry.
He's having a rest.
Great illustration of Winnie the Pooh on the board.
It's great illustration.
That Emily
yeah,
did herself.
Some very fine illustrations.
Yeah.
That was a laughter of agreement.
Yeah,
Sorry, mystery.
it's all right. I didn't really know what to choose because I grew up reading a lot of illustrated books as something I
So
liked
you
a
were
lot.
spoilt for choice too.
I
yes?
was, yeah. I had an illustrated anthology of Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, a whole big collection which I loved.
Mm.
So I thought I'd bring something you might not have heard of before if you're a bit younger. It's called Storyland, and it's basically a collection of British mythology, and in the same way that we see a lot of Greek mythology rewritten and reformed sort of modern audiences, this is the same with Britain, and it's all about the origin of Stonehenge and all sorts of people, the Vikings, Saxons, Britons, all of
So
that
it's the
kind of stuff.
mythology rather than the actual.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
mythology.
Yeah.
And there's a bit about how the Loch Ness monster came to be and all that kind of
You
stuff.
join
So
us? Yeah, come and sit down.
yeah, it's got last
You're
10 minutes.
welcome.
Pull up the pew.
Pull up
Oh,
the
then
pew.
we'll sit on
Or the ladder is available.
We'll try not to pull up the ladder. Yes, yeah, because you might block the camera if you pitch there.
Yeah.
All right, of course, yeah.
We're talking about book illustrations.
Yeah. And I picked this one up because it is illustrated by the author, which I thought was interesting. As we were talking earlier, a lot of really famous illustrations are done by someone else. You have the author and then the illustrator, and they work together. But this one is interesting because she did both
She
of them.
did both of them.
Yeah, and she's Amy Jeffs. I think she's a art historian. She studied a lot of ancient art and things like that. But they're not illustrations; they're lino cuts. Do you know how that works?
Yeah,
it's
right,
kind
so
of
sort
like
of
big
printing
printing. Has anyone done it before? Have you ever had a chance to do it?
Done a kind of.
It's really fun, but it's really hard. So the fact that she illustrated this whole book, she wrote it and illustrated it herself with lino cuts.
Partly lockdown, maybe.
Was it? Yeah,
When I did this online talk at the British Library, because I think it came. What date was it?
I think it's
published?
2021. Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, I think she was in her studio sort of 24/7 because of lockdown. I seem to remember.
Yeah.
Because I realise now why I did the talk. It began with somebody who'd done from the British Library a curator who'd done a new book about illuminated manuscripts. Because this is where where book illustration comes from, girls. It comes from out of the monks who illustrated the letters, the prayers, the stories of the Bible, with vast, Lulu, don't you? Like the Lindisfarne Gospels, the carpet pages, with the text was to be illuminated, literally given light with fabulous colours and pictures.
And real gold as well.
Real gold, real minerals, etc. Yeah. And so I can't remember her name, but Amy Jeffs was the second half, and that was about Storyland, and that was really, she was really interesting.
They're really cool. I never know how I feel about lino cut art. Part of me really likes it, and part of me isn't sure if it's to my taste. But I think that's sort of what makes it interesting.
I'm much more a woodcut person myself.
Yeah. But you can see
wood
they're
engraving,
like,
but
they
they're
look kinda
good.
like that. They're like big, couple
Yeah.
of seals.
Yeah.
There's one of the Loch Ness monster as well. But I think they give kind of a really interesting interpretation. That's quite different to, hand drawn art. It's quite, I don't know, they're quite stark. But yeah, there's one of the Loch Ness monster. I don't know. It's a kind of,
it's different. You know, usually images of Loch Ness Monster are so colourful and it's all about the water and the very grand, and this one's just like
Yeah, because you remind me as
so
well,
simple.
because Philip Pullman is he's clearly very into wood engraving, because Lyra's Oxford is all wood engraving.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah.
Which again is very takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the hardback copy is much bigger.
It is,
This is only the paperback one, so they're quite small. But yeah, I just thought it was an
So
interesting
it
thing to
starts
talk
with
about.
Stonehenge, and how far does it go?
It doesn't. I don't know. It's not in much chronological order. I
Oh,
think that
okay.
was my issue with it. Is it was kind of hard to
Yeah.
follow. It starts. It sort of is, but she doesn't date anything in it. Nothing is dated, so to read I was a bit like, who, where am I? But there's a lot of stuff about the history of women and
Oh, right, okay.
their connection with war and things like that, and she connects it to other parts of the world as well, like Egypt and Asia and things like that, and how it's all connected. So it's quite cool, but yeah, it's not an art style I'd associate necessarily with something about mythology in the natural world. You know, it's usually so grand. So I thought it was an interesting one to talk about.
Yeah,
And
it's really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
have a look at lino cuts if you
Yeah, definitely.
want a new style of drawing, because it's a really interesting. I think it's a bit divisive. Some people really don't like it.
I think it probably depends if you like black and white, solid.
That kind of style.
I mean, I got into wood engraving because I couldn't afford colour prints, and so it was a sort of my collection grew because it's black and white.
Yeah. But yeah, that was mine. Thought it was a bit
Very
different to some of the other ones.
Well worth sticking out.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
Anyone
Anybody else? Mr. Allen, illustrated books. Would you like to join in?
Can you think of any?
We've got a few on the table.
We've got a few on the table as examples, or
Either you can see
you
something.
might talk about something you read in your childhood.
Or something you read recently.
This is my kind of
Graphic
books.
novel, or
Picture books.
For once in my life, I'm actually I don't have anything.
You can't
I'm
think of
afraid
one.
I don't have.
do you want to
anything
talk about the front
that,
cover of To Kill a Mockingbird, because that's quite.
Good. I could.
You look overwhelmed.
I'll leave this one to you, Miss
Oh, all
Emily.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. In the most democratic.
The reason I sort of thought about this was originally I thought, we'll talk about book covers and famous book covers and how they might influence us to buy things, and of course bookshops try and put everything now on tables or front facing so that we don't have to try too hard, but quite often the spines are just as important, aren't they? I mean, look at the story of Tracy Beaker and how that's sort of being really thought about, because it might well be on a library shelf or in a bookshop. And there's Chris Riddell. I noticed that fantasy, is that a new?
Yeah, we're starting to put
Yeah,
it on
it's
as well,
great.
so.
That's really good. So we've got a visualisation there. But and also, of course, the fonts as well, because fonts are part of illustration as well. What font is going to be used? And I noticed that although this is quite a modern text, 2022, this is actually in a serif font. You know what a serif font is, girls? You want to tell me?
So it's like simple, but it has those tags on.
Yeah, it has little extra bits on the letters, which you probably wouldn't ever think about. And I only learnt about it when I first started. I mean, I knew about fonts and how they worked and what sans serif and in other words, without serifs and serifs was. But really, I only became sort of thinking about it when I learnt that dyslexics or people who have struggle with reading cannot cope with these little extra bits. So Arial became very popular for a time, and then lots of fonts were developed without serifs, like Calibri, which is the one we use in school, for example. But this is, I think, because this is Chris Riddell, and he's an artist, I don't think he's going to, have much worry. And it's that if you look at it, it looks quite old-fashioned on the page. But I think that's deliberate because of the subject matter as well, Tiggy and the Tin Man. and it's to do with magic and fantasy. And it's worth it, have a look at the different. You might have different texts that things. What is it about this text? Why has this been used? And thinking about To Kill a Mockingbird, the book is as small as the publishers could get it, and the text is actually quite small, isn't it? Yeah. So it is becoming a bit more of a problem. It's quite a thick book. I've got a hardback originally published in America, and the font is not as big, but it is becoming much more of a problem. And again, it's something that I only noticed when I started teaching. Oh no, this is such a small font. So publishers have had to really rethink about as dyslexic awareness and different ways of reading have become thought about. So for example, this is HarperCollins. I noticed this is serif too, but then when you see this is because this is Tolkien. This is written a very long time ago. Look at the size of the paragraphs. Don't get that now.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and it's also to do with the way that you put something on the internet. It's thought about, and then there's this is Quentin Blake, who of course everybody associates with Roald Dahl. Yeah, in fact, I can't imagine Roald Dahl being illustrated in anything other than Quentin Blake.
Oh, I think there are copies
There are
out there,
other,
aren't there? And it just
yeah.
doesn't
feel
seem like
right.
Roald Dahl to me. It just doesn't.
No,
It feels like a
exactly.
different story
Exactly.
altogether.
New books are illustrated by someone else that is
Yeah.
a Nick Sharratt, and it just blasphemy. to
Your
me.
brain just completely connects the
Yeah,
two, doesn't
absolutely. Yeah, see, this is 2014, but I noticed this too is in serif, which I wouldn't have expected. But there we are. There's Quentin Blake in his inimitable style.
So recognisable, isn't it?
So recognisable. And of course, he's been Children's Laureate, and he's now a Knight and for services to children's literature. And would we still be reading Roald Dahl if we didn't have Quentin Blake? That's the thing, isn't it? I wonder. It's just a few lines, and there it is. And the other illustrator that I grew up with was Edward R. Disney, who's English Italian, and he illustrated Stick of the Dump, which you might have read, and The Growing Summer by Noel Streatfeild when it first came out. And again, line drawings, but you look at, and actually they're dots, tiny pointillist drawings, and I look at that and I think I'm right back in my childhood reading The Growing Summer for the first time. And then there's another illustrator, I don't know who it is, who illustrated ballet shoes. And again, they're line drawings, but a very distinctive style. I have to look up who it is, actually. So it's the sort of thing that, for children, publishers have had to think, had to keep thinking, rethinking. How do we get this still? How do we reinvent things? How do we get them more accessible? And I think Kindle's making a difference as well, isn't it? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so have a think about, next time you open a book, what's the font? Is it accessible? Can I read it? Is it too small, too big? Or, could we illustrate it in some way? I met an ex-colleague yesterday on the towpath, Mrs. Ross, who used to be head of art here, and her daughter, who came here, Phoebe, is working as an illustrator now. She did theatre design at Wimbledon, and then changed her Wimbledon School of Art, and then changed her mind, and is beginning to carve a career for herself. At the moment, she has to have another job as well, but she's nonetheless successful. So it's worth. And in fact, I think Mrs. Furlong's daughter started doing that as
really?
well. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
These are all names
Cool.
that I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Anything to.
yeah, so have a think, because it's definitely a very good career. And the Folio Society produces beautifully bound and designed adult books, and they always put prints inside. They commission printmakers to make illustrations in black and white and also in colour. So it's worth thinking about. It's a good career, and also that's interesting that's still going strong in even in non-fiction, or certainly different mythology. Yeah. So, and of course there's a bear called Paddington with Peggy Foreman's wonderful illustrations. Who again, I look at them and I think back to before the film ever existed, and that's how he was. So yeah. So thank you for everybody's contributions. That's lovely. Well done. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So
Excellent.
all right. So see you in 2 weeks' time. 'cause
See you in
remember
2 weeks' time. Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Until then.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.